regional retail and hospitality workforce. Today, we want to begin a coordinated workforce recovery strategy together. So we're here to hear what your current needs are, what your pain points are. But we also want to hear about your successes and lessons learned so that we really can begin to chart a way forward through this crisis together. Quickly, before we get started, I want to go over just a bit of housekeeping. So first, a note that this meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be made publicly available to all attendees. Second, and this is a very important note, please mute your microphone. Thank you. This will, again, help minimize background noise distractions so that everybody can hear everybody else really well. So thank you for muting those phones and microphones. We also want to encourage you throughout this discussion to feel free to post comments or questions in the chat area. Please just make sure that you are posting to everyone as a recipient, because we have a chat monitor, Rochelle, who's going to be keeping out for your comments. And in the earlier part of our discussion, she'll read those comments aloud for us at appropriate moments. And I'll say more about how our conversation will go in a second. But in general, with respect to our format, I'm going to sort of start us off with an overview of the Getting Southern Maryland Back to Work initiative that this town hall is part of, and that's outlined in the white paper that you probably received. Then after that opening sort of introduction, I'm going to be joined by three panelists who are going to help kick off our open conversation. They're going to share their perspectives on workforce recovery, specifically, again, in Southern Maryland's retail and hospitality industries. Our panelists are Michael Gosch, who is General Manager of the Hilton Garden Inn Waldorf, Jerry LaRue, owner of Shepherd's Oldfield Market in Leonardtown, and Stephanie Witt, owner and operator of Chick-fil-A Incorporated in California, Maryland. So again, a reminder that you can post your responses, comments to things they're saying, or questions during that segment using the chat. After that opening dialogue, we'll introduce a short poll just to sort of get some thoughts from you. That'll be about 3 minutes before we open the floor for discussion. And that open discussion is where we hope to spend most of our time today, because we really do want to hear your perspectives. So at that point, we're going to also invite you to raise your hand to speak. And so Rochelle will look for your hands being raised, and she'll let you know when it's time for you to be unmuted and to speak to the forum. All right, so I want to tell you about the initiative. So the Getting Southern Maryland Back to Work initiative is a collaborative initiative of the Tri-County Council and the College of Southern Maryland to prepare our workforce for economic recovery, a new workplace normal. And this is, of course, in response to this COVID-19 pandemic. The workforce development arms of both the Council and CSM are aligning federal, state, and local investments to provide industry-recognized trainings and certifications. These investments are enabling regional partners, including you, to provide targeted responses to critical needs, equipping Southern Maryland to respond agilely to the challenge before us, which is to redefine our workforce. As you know, the pandemic has caused unprecedented unemployment in the US. Southern Maryland, as you also know, is not immune to this impact. The Maryland Department of Labor reports that unemployment in Southern Maryland has climbed to 8.4% as of May. And that's up from 3.3% in March. The greatest impact has been seen in retail and hospitality, along with construction and healthcare. So this Getting Southern Maryland Back to Work initiative aims to create clear pathways for workers who are currently unemployed, underemployed, or in need of a career change as a result of this crisis. The initiative has three objectives. The first is to invest in emerging skill needs. Second, to respond to business needs. And third, to reshape workforce development for the future. So I want to say a little bit about each one of those. With respect to investing in emerging skill needs, the partners recognize that the pandemic is changing the knowledge and skill requirements of our workers across industries. safety, sanitization, and remediation are now commonplace workplace practices, and employees at all levels require training in those areas. So CSM has already enhanced industry training to include COVID-19 awareness and safe workplace protocols. That's just for example. The partners are also preparing for emerging occupations that require new skills and certifications. They're developing new certificate programs for infectious control and barrier protection, contact tracing proficiency, community health liaisons, and more. Now, to respond to business needs, which is the second objective, the partners are first and foremost listening to businesses, listening to you. To determine priorities and develop successful programs, they're forging alliances with the Workforce Development Board, which has representatives from retail and hospitality, along with other industries. They're partnering with our chambers of commerce, our economic development departments, and our industry associations. They're holding town halls like this one. By listening to business, the partners have already created and implemented high impact trainings, including for organizations seeking to upskill their current employees. Finally, and this is the third objective, it's clear that we must collectively reshape workforce development for the future. The pandemic challenges us to reimagine workforce development as adaptive, agile, nimble, able to respond quickly to changing needs. Getting Southern Maryland back to work is coordinating the efforts of all stakeholders to provide critical training, capturing best practices, and also innovating, reshaping curriculum both in content and in delivery. In short, this initiative is engaging our entire Southern Maryland community in designing a responsive, high-impact workforce development system that will rebound our economy. So I just personally want to thank the Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland and the College of Southern Maryland for bringing us all together. And here we are ready to engage all of us in conversation to really look at what your specific workforce recovery needs are. So again, to begin our discussion, we're fortunate to have with us 3 local business leaders. I like to say leaders among leaders because all of you are leaders. And again, that's Michael Gosch, General Manager of the Hilton Garden Inn Waldorf, Jerry LaRue, owner of Shepherd's Oldfield Market in Leonardtown, and Stephanie Witt, owner and operator of Chick-fil-A Incorporated in California, Maryland. And so Michael, Jerry, and Stephanie, welcome. Please unmute yourselves if you haven't already, and thank you for being here. Are you ready to conversate?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so as I mentioned in the overview, our retail and hospitality industry is, not surprisingly, has one of the highest unemployment rates in the region, along with healthcare and construction. So I'd like all of you to tell us a little about the impact of the pandemic on your employees specifically, or employees within your industry as you know it. And so I would like to start with you, Jerry. What's happening in and around Shepherd's Oldfield Market, and how have you navigated this crisis with your employees or with others in your industry? Jerry, if you're speaking, I can't hear you. So while we're waiting for Jerry to chime in, Stephanie, how about you?
Okay, hi everybody, good morning. It's great to see everyone. Yeah, for us, this has been definitely a challenging time. In the beginning of this pandemic, we had about 25% of our workforce decide to self-quarantine. They were just very nervous about their families, about their own health, mostly just coming in contact with so many unknowns throughout the day with all of the people that we serve in a day. That was very challenging for us. And that coupled on top of now we had working moms who are now having to do schooling at home. That was challenging as well, having to figure out the flexibility of that so that they could have some work-life balance as well. So this whole thing has been definitely unprecedented and something that I've not in 20 years had to deal with. But I mean, the fact that unemployment is up so high in Southern Maryland actually gives me a little glimmer of hope, because that means maybe that workforce will start coming out and looking for jobs, because we just are desperate for some really great people and aren't getting the applications like we usually get.
Yeah, thank you. And I know that there's more. We're gonna drill down into that. But thank you for sharing that. Sort of what's going on. Michael, how about over in the hotel industry?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me. It's awesome to be part of this amazing conversation and this initiative to, let's prepare our workforce to come back and return for, because we know the economy is not going to be like this forever, but we need to be ready when the time comes and, get back in the workforce, get the work going, and, it's going to be welfare for all. But just to share a statistic, during the initial days of the lockdown, in fact, the first 3 days, 3 million people lost their jobs in the hospitality industry in 3 days.
Wow.
Just in the first 3 days since the emergency was announced by the CDC and the World Health Organization. So, to give you a perspective into how tremendously COVID has impacted the workforce in general across the board, and coupled with the concerns that Stephanie just shared with us, that it's not just about losing your job or how the employer is asking you to handle the situation, but it's also about personal safety, and then coupled with schools closing down, daycare not available to anybody other than essential workers. So it was a combination of a lot of factors that kind of put us on the backseat of progress, and that was quite hurtful, because as leaders in businesses, our job is to lead from the front. But when you have to be the one to look them in the eyes and say, hey, we understand that you have concerns, and so does, there's a tremendous impact on business, but we have to be the ones to deliver that news, and it was quite hurtful. So, I hope we all come together sharing that pain that our associates and team members have faced through this pandemic. And I can only hope that, now that we are all seeing somewhat of an uprising in the economy, that, we will all come together and help our workforce to return back to work.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Michael. Jerry, are you back online? If so,
yes.
Oh,
yes.
good. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Great.
Sorry about that. I had a few technical difficulties. Michael and Stephanie brought up some really, really good points, and I'm not going to elaborate on them because they're very salient points. I think that now that that we're ready to go back into our normal, or at least semi-normal day-to-day, it is extremely important for us as employers to protect not only our employees, but also our customers. Fortunately for Shepherd's Oldfield, I have a very, I always had a very small staff, and this was kind of a second income for them, along with Bruder Garden. It was a second income for most of these people, so they were able to continue their other jobs, but the ones that didn't, we managed to find something for them to do to keep them employed if that was their sole source of income. But like I said, like Mike and Stephanie mentioned, those are very good points. I echo them. And for me, the most important thing when all of this happened was, again, not just thinking of what we're doing right now and just dealing with the situation, but to think a few months ahead and what's going to happen and what we need to do as employers to make sure that our staff is protected and our customers.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, and that's one of the things that's really sort of challenging, is really thinking about that relationship between customers and employees, like having to have both in mind. And so I really, it's encouraging to know that, that leaders of organizations really are trying to strike that balance. So you mentioned, Jerry, about, thinking ahead. And so this next question that I want to pose to you all really asks us to sort of imagine the next 6 months. And we know that there's a lot of uncertainty, but we do need to be thinking about it. And so as we think about the next 6 months, and in particular about getting displaced employees back to work, what does the outlook generally look like for you for getting your employees back into your organization, or getting them back into the industry if it's not looking like they're going to be able to come back to your organization? And this time, Michael, I'd like to start with you. What's the outlook? And as you answer that, I'd like you to think in terms of, are there new kinds of work that are sort of emerging in your industries, or growth areas in sort of existing positions in which you're going to need more of those kinds of people? So where might you need more people, and where might there be new jobs coming up in the next 6 months, if at all?
So just speaking from what I've seen in my hotel, as well as in some of my partner hotels in Maryland, I think it's going to be sooner than 6 months before we start to recruit or invite our employees back to work. It's already seeing a boost in travel patterns, and I think it'll be in the next couple of months that we'll be fully staffed and possibly recruiting more. But in terms of growth opportunities, I think one of the main areas in a hotel environment is cleanliness and sanitization and disinfecting, public areas and guest rooms, because unlike a different business setting where there is a transaction and then there is a quick in and out, and I'm not dismissing the fact that that may also be an area of concern, but in a hotel, you have people actually staying in a guest room for at least 16, 17 hours. And they're not just sitting on their bed or sitting on their sofa chair. They are moving around in the room. There are multiple areas. So I think cleanliness is going to be that major concern. And of course, with that comes a higher demand or need for employees. And I'm going to quote Stephanie here, with that higher level of intelligence, who are more aware of, what's going on and what the demand of cleanliness requires, which is that, going back to the basics about, making sure that touch points are, clean, and we are aware of what's, who's moving around here. And so there will be a lot more demand for those inspectors and leaders in housekeeping areas, and as well as, in food and beverage, in restaurants, there's going to be tremendous protocol changes in the way we serve our customers. And so, one of the things that through the pandemic, I've been keeping tabs on all my team members through text messages, group chats, and one of the things that I've been encouraging them to do is to pick up new skills, to use this forced downtime to pick up new skills, learn new, add more value to their resume, so that when the time comes and the industry is getting ready to hire people back, that these skills will help them in coming back to the workforce.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks, Michael. Stephanie, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Michael hit it right on the head. Exactly what we discussed yesterday in our pre-meeting. The biggest shift for us was that now my leaders, my directors, had to almost become mini healthcare workers, which was just all these new requirements that have come, taking temperatures when the team members come in, asking them COVID responsible questions. You know, have you experienced any of these symptoms? Have you been around anyone? It has put a strain on their day to day, so that we've had to luckily automate some of those things so that it's not so bad for them. I will say, you know, your initial question with getting the people back to work, in March, April, and May, our sales were definitely just awful. We didn't need the people. The people who self-quarantined actually helped me a little bit, because then I didn't have to lose as much money in labor, because I chose not to lay anyone off. I was going to pay you whether I needed you or not. We looked at our business a little differently. We no longer have a dining room, and we don't have plans to have a dining room anytime soon. We definitely looked at, you know, the mobile ordering. How can we get people service differently and quickly? And then as well, so come the end of June, we saw some of our sales start to bounce back finally. And I had to do an all call for my employees and say, you know, look, I've allowed you to self-quarantine. I've allowed you to do the things that you felt you needed to do, but now it's time for me to ask you, are you going to be coming back to work, or do I need to look to replace you? Most of them came back and felt comfortable coming back. We had to put new things in place, like we get a germicide spray done to the restaurant once a week, which is something I thought about doing. But it really makes my team feel more comfortable. They say they feel more comfortable working inside my restaurant than they do on the outside. So it's like, I feel more comfortable here. You're definitely going above and beyond. But it's had these new set of challenges that we just simply didn't plan on dealing with.
Yeah, and I'm going to come back to that point. But Jerry, what about in your area?
Well, and we managed to, as soon as we were able to open Shepherd's Oldfield Market, bring the employees back. And I had a meeting with them on all the sanitary requirements that needed to be in place and more of us serving our customers. It was also very important for us to be very in tune with the customers that were coming in. Specifically, you kind of had an idea if they were very cautious or they were afraid, you know, just by their mannerisms or how they were acting, and to be considerate of that, to understand that what we look as normal practices now, even with COVID-19, is the fact that there are some people that are still kind of hesitant about venturing out, but are still doing it. So it was important not only for the checks and making sure that all these sanitary processes were done, but also to give them that extra pep talk about be very cautious and observe your customers to see what their comfort level is. Not everybody is at that same comfort level. They know that it is their responsibility to follow these processes, and they do know that I get very upset if they're not, or if I have to remind them, and to just use common sense sometimes in understanding that, you know, you normally didn't check the bathroom as many times, but this time, guess what? You're not only going to have to check it, you're going to have to wipe down those counters and sinks every time you go in and check it. So there are things that are above and beyond that I feel that, or I think, that the employees should be doing, so that we give the community a sense of security in knowing that, you know, that when they come to us, that they're going to feel a certain amount of a high amount of confidence that we are we're practicing these things and more. It's been harder for me, not so much with SOF, but with Brudergarden, in making sure that these things happen, because of course we know there was such an influx of people that were dying to get out and go out and have a beer, that you know, certain people got carried away. Some of it is hard for the employees because they have never been in forces before as much. So they had to kind of remind the customers, hey, you know, we're practicing social distancing here. You know, there's 8 people to this table. I know you all like each other, but you know, you need to have a little bit more distancing, and this is where you could sit, but in a nice way. So, you're absolutely right in saying that there are additional skills that we're looking in the people when they come back to have, and a lot of it is common sense, but a lot of it, because a lot of employees, I think, specifically in this field, you know what to do, but sometimes the use of common sense in going a step further is what you're hoping to instill in them, especially the employees that are coming back, so that you can continue using them. Now, for the people that really needed jobs, that didn't have another job, and, you know, really it was okay for them to not to come back, we found additional things for them to do at the market or at the bar projects that we were working on that they wanted to help us, that we ended up paying them for. So the ones, and we have a pretty stable staff. We do, as with you know, the summertime, we do hire more people with the expansion of Brita Garden, and also is the number of people coming in. And we're very careful about telling them what our requirements are, not only for the good of the customer, but also for their safety.
There's so much here, and I'm gonna save my questions for the open Q&A. But I'm thinking a lot about something that we discussed last week with the hospitality industry, and that is sort of the sort of the mental and behavioral health aspects of this. But I want to put a pin in that and come back to that a little bit later. The third question that I really want to get into this segment has to do with your recruiting challenges. So Stephanie, I know we've talked about the challenge you're facing in getting employees back and recruiting new employees to meet your demand. Can you all, I'll start with Stephanie, but can you all talk a little bit about the recruitment challenges you're facing right now and the kinds of support you need to meet those challenges?
Yeah, in 20 years, I have always had a stack of applications that we could go through and be interviewing people and have people on kind of a reserve list. Okay, I don't have a spot for you right now, but I will soon. We don't have that right now. We have very few applications coming in, and with a lot of uncertainties of what are schools going to look like in the fall, what are colleges going to look like in the fall, you know, are people going to be still homeschooling their children, or, you know, what is all that going to look like? I think people, someone mentioned on the chat that people might be hesitant to put in applications. I think they're spot on. The problem is I'm very concerned about the fall. You know, our customers are definitely used to a certain level of service when they enter our restaurant. And I'm not 110% sure that I'm not going to have to revamp. So I'm hoping that maybe people will decide to come out and put some applications in, and we can get a strong workforce. I think workforce, you know, the workforce committee can really help us with that. They know who are the displaced workers. I think they can send them out and encourage them that, look, retail is definitely opening back up and you guys need to get out there and get those jobs before someone else does. You know, and know that retail is the best place for flexibility. I mean, we are open so many hours that we could be flexible with their schedules so that they can have that work-life balance. But, you know, I'm just praying that things will even out here very soon.
Thank you, Stephanie. Jerry, what about you?
Same thing. We don't really have as many people coming in and putting in for applications, just like Stephanie said. And, you know, when they do, we interview them right away. That's how few we have, that we have the ability of not just having a stack and saying, oh, well, I need somebody now. But I interview them on the spot to make sure that if I do have an opening, or I may have an opening, or these are the openings that I have, and to see if they fit the position. It's I don't believe it's been as challenging for me because of the size of Bruta Garden and Shepherd's Soul Field Market and the stable staff that I have there, as it is for Stephanie and Michael, maybe.
Mhm. Thanks. And how about you, Michael?
Um, Believe it or not, applications are coming my way from sources that I had never imagined before. Not as many in numbers, but I'm definitely receiving them. Even my guests are approaching me in the hallway saying, "Hey, are you guys hiring?"
Wow.
Yeah, it's very strange. It you know, as a hotel guy, I've always seen our guests as, the one better than myself, and for them to now suddenly turn around and ask me if I'm hiring, it puts me in a very awkward place. But at the same time, uh, when I have seen some of those guests hanging out in our lobby areas, or just in the pool areas, or in our restaurant areas, not practicing social distancing, not wearing their masks, not taking those measures that will protect themselves, it raises a question in my mind that, hey, I may be hiring, but are you fit first? Are you mentally ready have you prepped yourself to come back to work? And social distancing, or taking those precautions, is not just when you are in front of somebody. It's something that has to become the new normal in our daily lives. And unless I see those that carefulness, that awareness being displayed in your actions, I'm not just going to hire you. And hence goes back to the challenge of um, recruiting is, and I'm just going to speak from experience. Some uh, uh, countries, they make it mandatory training for employees to have certain basic skills before they can even apply for a job or even consider filling out an application. Some of them are free of cost. Some of them are enhanced learnings or skills that you can, go to school for. But the basics, in terms of, now hotels and restaurants, and I think Stephanie would agree, and would Jerry, that, hotels are, or food, any establishment or any business has a lot of government regulations that we need to be compliant with. And for example, in our industry specifically, we have serve safe certificates, which talks about keeping sanitization in mind, handling food, handling customers. Same way, serving alcohol responsibly. We have tips, alcohol training available to employees. Now these are not expensive. $10 for a ServSafe certification that would that would certify you for the next 2 years, and you're ready to apply for a job at any restaurant. And as a leader, as a hiring manager, it gives me the confidence that you have done your part in making sure that you are job ready. So it's just striking that balance. I think, you know, like Stephanie said, and so did Jerry, that we are seeing a boost in economy. We are seeing travel patterns change. We are seeing more customers spending money. It's just we need to have employees uh, have that general awareness of what they're walking back into.
Yes, and I think that's a really interesting point about folks who are on the job market really being aware of the need of employers for people who are really sort of conscious about what's going on in the pandemic and preparing themselves to meet the needs of employers and interacting with customers. So that's a really important point. I really want to just thank all three of you for this wonderful opening discussion. I've learned a lot, and as I speak with people, I will let them know, first of all, that you are hiring, but also, I think to think about the kinds of things that you've mentioned. So thank you for that. I'm going to move us on. It's time for an open conversation, but everybody, we want to begin with a bit of a poll to begin to assess what some of your needs are moving forward in the next months and into the year. And so Ruthie, is that poll ready to go?
I believe it is. You should see it in your chat shortly.
Okay. All right. I see it. Does everybody see it? So there are 3 questions. We'll give you a minute or 2 to answer those. They're pretty straightforward. But thank you in advance for sharing your thoughts on these questions. And then once you're done there, we'll pick up with an open discussion.
And please, if you're an industry member, answer these questions. If you are a partner, let's leave it up to the industry.
Thanks.
Can you read for those of us that don't have video, could you read those questions out for me, please?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and I guess, Ruthie, we should probably talk about how those folks can respond. But the first question is, if new hires for entry mid-level positions could possess a career readiness certification that affirmed their ability to think critically, analyze data, work independently, and communicate effectively, would you find that certification of value, yes or no? Let's see. I might need somebody else to read the second question because I would have to answer this in order to go to the second one. So Karen or Ruthie, can you read?
I can read it for you. The second question is, are you interested in information on how to establish a structured work-based learning program that supports the continuous skill enhancement of your current workforce?
Okay, excuse me. Some people are saying they're having error messages when they're doing the voting. They're receiving error messages. Can we address that?
Hi, this is Karen. We're actually going to send this out by email also.
Okay.
So you should, the ones that are getting an error, we will correct that and get that out to you by email.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to give it maybe a couple more seconds before we get into our main conversation.
And Sybil, we do have a few questions to be read when you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Rochelle. Ruthie, what's the third question on the survey?
Looking for that now.
Okay.
Ruthie, this is Ellen. I have it. The third question is, are you interested in information on how to establish a structured work-based learning program that supports the continuous skill enhancement of your current workforce?
I thought that was the second question.
That's what I have listed here, unless it's out of
Okay.
order.
Yeah, we did career readiness certification and information on continuous skill enhancement.
And I have just found number 3.
Okay.
So number 3 is, are you interested in participating in quarterly industry roundtables like this one that connect you to current students and recent graduates, provides you with the opportunity to influence regional training programs, and encourages best practice sharing? So would you be interested in more roundtables? Okay. So what I don't get from teams is feedback on how this is progressing, polling is progressing. So I'm going to just go ahead and give you 30 more seconds before we start the conversation. But I will say this, while you are completing the poll, for those of you who have already finished, if you have questions, by all means, go ahead and post questions into the chat. I know some of you have already, which is fantastic. And in a few seconds, we are going to dive right back in. All right, so thanks again to those of you who have completed the poll. Those who were not able to do it online, that again will be coming to you via email. Rochelle, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you to share some of the questions that have come in.
Okay, perfect. Our first question was from Tony, actually, and she had 2 questions. I'm going to link them together. Okay. I'm sorry, I have to scroll back up so far. We've been really chatty. That's great. All right. Tony's first question I see here has the good mornings. Okay, here it is. All right. Tony asked about what are some of the new protocols going to be? She wanted to know what some of the new protocols going to be, and also she wanted to know, will it affect cost and price?
Is she referring to the protocols for our employees to follow?
Hello, would you like me to do that?
Tony,
to clarify? Okay, so when I asked about the protocols going forward, I was referring to, well, to everyone, but hospitality in particular. And also, like, look, when you were, since you don't have a dining room anymore in the restaurant, and it's, you know, a lot of driving up and things like that, is this going to affect the cost of your food? Are there going to be any changes in the prices that we're paying that overall?
Yeah, there isn't any current anticipated price increases. Our price increases typically are driven more towards cost of food. So cost of getting the food in, that type of thing, that pretty much drives ours. It's not really driven and hasn't been in all the years I've been doing this by increased employee situations. So I mean, mostly the increased responsibilities and processes that we've had to do have to really go around wiping things down every 30 minutes with COVID appropriate sanitizer, making sure that everyone is wearing masks at all times, making sure gloves are being worn, making, you know, it's all of those types of new rules that we have in place where you wouldn't see a cashier wearing gloves necessarily. Now you do. Gloves were something that were worn in the kitchen. Now it's not just the food prep people, it's everyone. It's, you know, all of those new processes that are in place that we now have to go back and police and teach, you know, about sanitation and how to keep people safe, because someone's going to touch that door and then we don't know where they've been. The guests aren't wearing gloves. We don't know where they've been. So as soon as they touch the door, then we're wiping the doors down and, you know, those types of things.
Okay,
thank you.
That was great.
All right, our next question was from Pam Wilkerson. It says, do you foresee your industry requiring new certifications to address the new protocols?
This is Jerry. I would say that it would definitely help us. It might not be mandatory, but it definitely gives us a sense of comfort to know that there is something out there. And I know there's a lot already that's being offered, but something as simple as customer service. I know some companies offer that and it does cost, but a lot, what we believe or what we think is normal for someone to act a certain way isn't necessarily true, because it depends from the environment that they come from. And us older people like me have a different sense of customer service as anyone else. And I say this because I was new to the States 46 years ago. And I came from countries that were very, very customer service. And the United States was at that time. But I've noticed in the 46 years that I've been here that the idea of customer service or what customer service is has definitely changed with the different generations that has come forward. So some of the things that we think is, oh, that is a simple answer, or this is how you would answer, is not necessarily true, and they need to be reminded of it. So some really easy certifications and, things that we think, oh, well, that's understood. You should know how to do that, isn't necessarily true today. So as far as the safety, of course, it would make it so much easier. And that is one of the questions that we ask when we hire anybody from the kitchen, is the safety protocols that go into serving food and instituting. I mean, I would probably hire somebody that has a certification in something that over and above anyone else that is as simple, like I said, like customer service, and knowing that, yes, it's kind of a no-brainer, but then again, I have noticed that it's not really the practice of the society to practice or to behave that way.
Thank you. Along with that question, we have another one. Increasing soft skill training is then critical along with any other technical skills, correct?
Amen to that.
Amen.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
All right, we're going to skip over to Michael Gosh, who has his hand up.
Hi, Rochelle. Sorry, what I wanted to add was, as industry leaders, we talk about these soft skill certifications, but I think we need to come together and partner with Workforce Development Board and the CSM to figure out, in today's world, what would apply to us as soft skills that would really prepare the next generation of workforce to come back and into employment. I think that's what we need to figure out.
Thank you for that. Sam had a question, and his question reads, I like how you mentioned about being mentally ready to work during these times. It is very different than it was before, and I personally believe that it's going to be the new normal. Does everyone else feel this way as well?
I would like to jump in here, if I may. I think just to share an example, through the worst period of the pandemic, I had a core of 6 team members who were, running the hotel, including myself. And of course, we took the necessary precautions, but we had only one housekeeper who continued to work with us and help upkeep the cleanliness levels of the hotel. Of course, we were running at very limited capacity at the time, so it was easy to manage. But I think having that one housekeeper work through and, just other employees seeing that, okay, this one housekeeper has cleaned multiple guest rooms during this time, and she has kept herself safe as long as she's following the protocols that are set in place. And perhaps it's time for me to come back, because if this one person can do it, so can I, and so can everybody else.
Thank you for that, Michael. We have another question here, and it reads, I can't pronounce the name here. Can you ask the panel, that's you guys, in their opinion, what are the top 3 soft skills that every employee should have?
I always lump it into 3 things: honor, dignity, and respect. So if they can lump their soft skills into those 3 categories, honor, dignity, and respect, then I think that we're going in the right direction. It's been very difficult because, I raised my children a certain way. Yes, ma'am was something that they just knew to say. As I hire people throughout the 20 years, I realized that is not in all households. Yes, ma'am is foreign to them. So I think, we're all knowing that we're all looking at different levels and at a different starting point. If we can just get them towards those 3 things, I feel like I have a little bit of a win.
I'd add patience to that.
Any others added?
So, go ahead, Michael.
Oh, sorry. So I think, in my opinion, I always like to quote wise people. Someone very wise once said, God helps those who helps themselves. So, it's all about going back to the basics, right? We all know it. We all practice it. We just are not aware of it. So let's be aware of helping ourselves. And in terms of increasing our awareness, increasing our knowledge about what is COVID, how is it impacting people, how is it impacting you and your families. And once you have that, you integrate that with what Stephanie just said, honor, integrity, and respect. You combine those four, and of course, patience. And, now you are not only honoring and respecting yourselves and your loved ones, but you're honoring your coworkers, you're honoring your guests, you're honoring your business, and it's just a ripple effect. You do it to yourself, and it will happen to everyone else. And then, of course, your attitude will ultimately decide your altitude. So you combine these forces, and you have the right attitude that, hey, I need to come back. I want to grow. I want to move ahead. I want to be successful. And you will be. You just have to, tell that to yourself first, that person in the mirror, that, hey, you are destined for success. There are certain few basics that you need to combine together in your daily life, and you will be on the path to success.
Michael, that was great. You're getting some indeeds and some amens over here. Sybil has her hand up.
Yeah, I'd like to just sort of interject and sort of return to an earlier thought I had about sort of mental health and behavioral health. And I want to tie this to the question about soft skills. Because so yesterday, we had a pre-meeting, and one of the insights that came away from that after talking to our panelists was that it would be really beneficial to help employees, both current and future employees, become both competent and confident in navigating our spaces now and interacting with their customers. And so I want to actually sort of ask them again, if you feel that a training, whether that's a training within your organization or other kinds of training for job seekers, that really specifically helps them again with the technical skills in sort of safety and sanitization and all that, but also really the softer skill of feeling confident moving into our workspaces now. If you would find some real benefit in that, or if you think that would be feasible to do.
Yeah, I think, with us making sure that people understand, if people have quarantined themselves, all they've seen about this pandemic is what the media is showing us. They are at an ultimate fear factor, ultimate high, of we can't survive this. I think that we do need to educate them that, hey, you can take care of yourself. You can wear masks, you can social distance, you can wash your hands, you can make sure, is it 100% guarantee? No, but like you were saying the other day, that you read the article about someone with a suppressed immune system. If people are living with these challenges on a day-to-day basis, and they've had to do those things their whole life and survive. So, that really struck me when I spoke about that. And I think we need to have something, even if it's just online, for someone to put their mind at ease and know it's okay to go back to work and you can manage this.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephanie.
That's it, Sybil.
Yeah, so, okay, thank you, Rochelle. Michael and Jerry, anything do you want to weigh in on that before we move on?
I personally, sorry, go ahead, Jerry.
No, it's okay, Michael, go ahead.
I just want to add one last thing. I think, so much of our lives, we have learn to live without being aware of actually what's going on around us. And one of the critical factors that will help everybody is to have that confidence and trust in yourself that you can do it. And like Stephanie said, if we are responsible enough to have a job, we are responsible enough to learn what comes as part of it. And we just need to build that trust within ourselves, with our teammates, with our businesses, and as well as with our customers. In the end, this is going to be a two-way street.
Yeah.
That's all I can add.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Jerry?
No, I'm not going to repeat it, but they both nailed it on the head.
Awesome. Well, I just really want to thank the three of you so very much for sharing your experiences and perspectives and insights and guidance, really, also, as we begin this process of moving forward. And thanks to our audience members who contributed to this conversation and to the poll. Rochelle, thank you so much for managing our conversation through the chat. And I also just want to personally thank the Tri-County Council again and Workforce Development at CSM for bringing us all together. These conversations have been really insightful and meaningful to me as a citizen, as a resident, as a member of this community. So I love seeing everybody coming together and pulling together. And I do hope that there will be more involvement in the future roundtables that the Tri-County Council and CSM are putting together. So stay tuned for that. So thanks again, everyone. And I'm going to kick this over to Ruthie for closing comments.
Thank you, Sybil. Thank you, everyone that attended today. This was very meaningful for me personally as Workforce Development Director. Also very meaningful, I'm sure, for Ellen Flowers Fields in her role at CSM in continuing education. These conversations, as Sybil said at the beginning, are going to guide our actions going forward in workforce development in terms of trainings and other convenings that will assist the industry. So please look forward to hearing from us within a week. We will have some next steps available. If you have any further questions and weren't able to post them or get them answered today, please feel free when the poll comes out. It will be an email. You can respond to that email with any additional questions or insights. And if you found this valuable and you have colleagues in your industry that you think would benefit by participating in the past, please feel free to invite them. So thank you all so very much.
Ruthie, this is Ellen. If I can chime in before everyone leaves, I just want to reiterate, thank you all so much for this very robust conversation. I can honestly tell you we're excited by the comments that were made by our panelists and the questions that were asked. I believe that there are resources and tools, certifications and supports that can not only help us identify and support the baseline essential skills, we refer to them as essential versus soft skills that new workers need in order to enter into the workplace. And I certainly believe that there is a space for us to continue these conversations ongoing. Part of the reason why you received the poll and it's going to come out to you again since you didn't all get a chance to answer is because we want to know your interest in being involved with us in future discussions. We also want to share information with you about a national career readiness standard that can identify those soft skills and help people build training in those areas. So we invite you to please complete that survey when you receive it so that we can invite you to those discussions. And as Ruthie indicated, you will receive several emails from us, including a recording of this meeting for your record. So we thank you again for your participation and look forward to working with each of you.
And I'd like to also chime in and thank Sybil for being our moderator. You did an excellent job. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.